What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. I am Sam. Big news in the Seahawks world yesterday. The Seahawks filled their offensive coordinator positions. Ryan Grubb, the former Washington offensive coordinator, current Alabama offensive coordinator, who never actually coached at Alabama, but he was hired there, is our offensive coordinator, and Alan Durd, the Cowboys defensive line coach, is going to be our defensive coordinator. I'm going to be breaking this down, giving my thoughts, giving my opinions, and talking about what I think this means for the Seahawks going forward. Let's start with the really big news, which is Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb is the Seahawks offensive coordinator, not official yet, but basically official. If you are on Seahawks Twitter, you saw all the pictures yesterday of now. Listen, I do not live in Seattle. I do not live anywhere near Seattle. I actually live probably as far away from Seattle as possible in a lot of ways. Um, but I heard there's this bar named Dino's, which is a bar close to the VMAC where in the now I was sick last night and I was not up for all this. I woke up at like 4 in the morning and I saw all this news unfold. But yeah, I woke up at like 4 and I'm like scrolling through Twitter. I see the Ryan Grubb news. I decided to scroll through Twitter, see what's going on. And then I see all these pictures from, like people posting these blurry photos of Mike McDonald, Kirk Olivadotti, who's the linebackers coach. I believe that's his name. Um, and then you have John Schneider, and then you have Ryan Grubb, and they're at this bar, and all these different angles of the photo come out. It's like a forensic analysis of this meeting. And ultimately, people are like, Ryan Grubb is right near the VMAC, and they are talking with Mike McDonald, with John Schneider. And, you know, that was extremely fun to see. Ultimately, the news that came out this morning, the news that came out yesterday morning was that Chip Kelly was going to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator after Bill O'Brien left, which is in no way really a surprise. I mean, that's a job that could really vault him to NFL success if he has a ton of success with Ohio State. Um, you know, uh, ultimately, Grubb seemed to be the number one choice throughout the entire process. He was kind of the first name that came up, and ultimately he's the winner of the sweepstakes. I did not really watch a lot of University of Washington football. I don't know much about uh Ryan Grubb, so I'm gonna have to study up. However, just some things listening to other UW fans is that he is a guy that utilizes a lot of motion, which excites me. I think when you look at the best offenses in the NFL, the Rams, the Niners, the most creative, innovative offenses, they use a lot of motion to expose where the defense is. I think that's a huge plus, and ultimately, I'm a big supporter of doing that. I also think that at the end of the day, Grubb uses I also say that here that he uses a lot of formations to get his best players one on one, which is also surprising, seeing how maybe DK can be utilized now. And I just ultimately hear a lot of people excited about how many opportunities he created for his playmakers and how many opportunities he created for his best players and how many easy plays he made for Michael Penix. And that's kind of another aspect of this. Does this make the Seahawks a legitimate player for Michael Penix? And like, I could definitely see it. And we know John Schneider likes to trade down. If John Schneider hypothetically is sitting at 16 and he decides to move down into the 20s or the 30s even, and Michael Penix is therefore still on the board, I would not be stunned if Michael Penix is a guy that they're at least entertain, especially if Grubb is in the room pushing that narrative. Um, but ultimately, I'm very excited about this hire. This seems like a hire that I've been waiting on for a while. It's a coach who seems very innovative, seems very kind of newfangled in his offense, which is something that I'm really excited about. Kind of what I expected to get with Shane Waldron. And obviously, we know Shane Waldron was kind of, at the end of the day, to me, a very mid offensive coordinator. He was not going to blow you away. He was not going to do anything terrible. He was just going to kind of exist for you. Um, you know, so no surprise there. Uh, Grubb seems like a player's guy. There's a lot of pictures of him, after the, Rose Bowl and stuff, or not the Rose Bowl, whatever bowl game that they beat Texas in. It might have been the Cotton Bowl, where he's like smoking cigars with his players in the locker room, taking selfies. Seems like he's a real player's guy, which excites me. And because Shane Waldron really didn't seem that way. Shane Waldron seemed very vanilla, seemed very bland. It's nice to see guys that are gonna maybe get more out of their players. And ultimately, this is a hire that I think was important because he's called plays before, and I think that's needed. I think he has designed offenses. Something that kind of turned me off with Engstrand is that he didn't, and I think that would have been a huge red flag for a rookie defensive head coach to have a offensive coordinator who never called plays. That would have been a really big bad thing with me personally. And that's kind of why I was so interested in Chip Kelly. I put my video out the other day saying why I would entertain Chip Kelly a lot, given the fact that he has really called plays before for a lot of good teams. But ultimately, Grubb is a great hire. I think Grubb, frankly, I did not think Grubb would be interested in the job. I thought he would just stay in Alabama and say, what, maybe I want to be a college coach. But I guess this opportunity in Seattle with all these playmakers is too good to turn down. And maybe they gave him a big contract in return. But ultimately, this is a very interesting hire, and a hire that I'm really interested to see where it goes. Ryan Grubb is the new Seahawks offensive coordinator. Uh, Really interesting to see. He was also the quarterbacks coach for Washington, which makes you wonder, maybe does he pick up that role with the Seahawks as well? Could be interesting. There is also a report that he's expected to bring former Washington offensive line coach uh, Scott Huff alongside him to the Seahawks, which is also a big thing, considering that Washington had one of the best offensive lines in football last year. And, maybe you could have something where you have a coach who really has built up an offensive line, and you can kind of hopefully bridge that gap with Andy Dickerson, who ultimately I believe was really one of the better members of our entire coaching staff last year. He recently took a job at the Browns uh, for the same offensive line coach gig, but at the same time, I think Huff is a respected name. He's a name that has experience and has experience building up offensive linemen. Once again, maybe you see this as a spot where maybe Troy Fautanu, who is a tackle for Washington, maybe he's a guy that they could also pick up now, given them the connection there and the obvious bridge to make. Um, Ultimately, is this a perfect hire? I can't say so. It's not a perfect hire. There's a little bit too much uncertainty to make it a perfect hire. He's never, he was kind of under Kalen DeBoer. We don't know how much control he really had on that Washington team. And then also the fact that he is a college coach. And that's a big jump for a lot of coaches to make. We've seen a lot of college coaches struggle from the jump. A little bit too much uncertainty. Ultimately, I would give like an A-, a B+, a good hire, pretty good hire. Not a great hire, not a perfect hire, a solid, respectable hire that I'm excited about. And I want to see what he can do, because I've seen some people be really excited about this move that know about Washington, and I'm excited to see where it goes personally. The other piece of news yesterday with the Seahawks was before the Ryan Grubb news. The Seahawks also hired another head coach, not another head coach, another important coach, another coordinator. The Seahawks are set to hire Cowboys defensive line coach Aiden Durd. I called him Alan Durd. Aiden Durd, or Dirty. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Aiden Durd. I'm just gonna call him as their defensive coordinator. Once again, this is ultimately a hire that's a little bit less important. Given the fact that the defensive coordinator is not going to be calling plays. That's going to be Mike McDonald. Still, the point stands that it's an important hire given the coaching aspect of it, because this in essence fills out the defensive coaching room. We know Dirt is going to be working with defensive linemen. We know Mike McDonald and Kirk Olividade are going to be working with uh with linebackers, and we know that Carl Scott is going to be working with DBs. This fills out the defensive line room, the defensive coaching room in general. A little bit of background on Durd, or yeah, the Cowboys defensive line coach for the past 3 seasons, in which they've been one of the better defensive lines in the NFL, with Micah Parsons and Neville Gallimore and Demarcus Lawrence. Really respectable defensive line room there, really great defensive line room there. And, I think that's ultimately going to inspire a lot of inspiration in the Seahawks team. He's also the big thing to note here is that he's been a Dan Quinn guy the entire time. Started with the Falcons in 2016 as a coaching intern, defensive assistant from 2018 to 2019, and outside linebackers coach in 2020 in Atlanta while Dan Quinn was the head coach. And then for the past 3 seasons, he's been the Cowboys defensive line coach under Dan Quinn. So he is going to be working with the defensive line. A little bit of an interesting note here. He is going to be the first British defensive coordinator in NFL history, which is pretty cool. Born in London. Pretty cool note there, I feel like, given, just a neat little interesting thing. Played in NFL Europe for those who remember that. And also the Seahawks do have a chance to play in London this year. If there's a shot, they might play the Bears in London. It's not, obviously nothing's confirmed, but that is a possibility there. So, if that happens, you'll have Dirk make a return to to London. Sorry, sick brain is not working. Ultimately, I think this is a really good hire. It's a very low risk hire considering he's not going to be calling plays, and you want to get him for the coaching help that he will bring. And ultimately, I feel that Dirk has coached a lot of great defensive lines, and in Dallas, they've been one of the better defensive lines since he's been coaching there. And I think ultimately what you're going to have is you're going to have a really complete defensive coaching room, and you're going to have a lot of really well coached groups. And I think that in general, this is going to prove to be a move that the Seahawks will really like. And I think it's going to be a proof to be a move that the Seahawks uh, will really benefit from in the long run, given his coaching history and the teams that he's coached and the groups that he's coached. So ultimately, you know, I'm really excited about this move. I'm really excited about both of these hires. Ultimately, I would give this like an A minus. A little bit more certainty than the Grubb move, given the fact that he's not going to be calling plays. All you're getting is the coaching, which is kind of a benefit. Puts a lot less pressure on him to succeed. If you want me to be honest, I think that the Seahawks have done a really fantastic job filling out this coaching room this offseason. They've waited, and it seems like they got the guys that they wanted, even though they waited, which is a great thing because it really makes it seem like they did their due diligence and they really were sure that these were the guys that they wanted in the long run. They didn't rush to make a move. They get Leslie Frazier, they get Durd, they get Ryan Grubb, they get Scott Huff, they get all these great coaches. They get Mike McDonald, obviously, which is the big fish here. Um, this is a fantastic group, and it's a group that I think a lot of Seahawks fans are going to be interested in. It's an analytics based group. It's a young group. Durd is 44. I believe Mike McDonald obviously is the youngest head coach in the NFL. Um, I believe Ryan Grubb is in his 40s, a young group here, a young, interesting group that is going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think, So yeah, Grubb is 47. Uh, this is gonna be a team that I think is going to inspire a lot more Seahawks fans than ever. I know it's inspiring me a lot more. I'm way more excited to make videos. I'm way more excited to talk about this football team and how much more interesting it's going to be. Um, I think that this is gonna be a really fun year for the Seahawks. I'm really interested to see where it goes. Leave your thoughts in the comments below on what you guys think about these hires. Do you like the Ryan Grubb hire? What would you rate it? What do you think about the Aiden Durd hire? And kind of what do you think the Seahawks should do next? Obviously at this point, only like quarterbacks coach, running backs coach, wide receivers coach to fill out. So it's not super important, but still, it's important nonetheless. And what do you think about the Seahawks coaching process in general in their coaching room? Leave it in the comments below. Start the discussion and I will respond. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, ring that bell whenever I post any new videos. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.